This is Designing Security Products, where we talk about the intersection of cybersecurity, research, and product design. I'm William Donnell, and today I'm talking with Justin Sung, product developer and founder at Authsignal. So, hey, Justin, thanks for meeting with me today.
Hi, William. Great to meet you.
Yeah. So I want to talk with you a little bit. I know that we got connected over a LinkedIn post that was talking about the intersection of cybersecurity and user experience, and that's something that both of us are really passionate about. And so I wanted you to come on and talk a little bit about that today. But first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe your background, and then what you do at Authsignal.
Great. Thanks, William. I'm Justin, one of the founders at Authsignal, and I really look after the product and steer the product in a direction where we want all consumers to be safe online. And the way we do that at Authsignal is produce security products that businesses can then drop into their platforms and their apps to then keep the customers safe. So that's our overarching mission, and we're really proud to build beautiful products that keep people safe.
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about what was your inspiration for starting Authsignal? Like, what's the backstory on it?
Yeah, I came from an engineering background, and I was worked for a lot of financial and fintech products over the last decade, and I saw a recurring theme. The businesses and my bosses that looked after growth and customer experience, for good reasons, wanted as many people to sign up and to make those transactions in the internet as seamless as possible. On the flip side, when you build financial products, it attracts risk, bad actors, fraudsters. And then all of a sudden, you're caught in between two very competing priorities: keeping good users safe and transacting seamlessly, and stopping the bad guys. These two things are really difficult to solve and takes a lot of intent to blend security controls with a great customer experience. And I found that there was a missing, there was a lot missing in the market, in the thinking around how to steer good customers through a seamless experience while keeping them completely safe. What we found is most people took a sledgehammer approach, and what happens to good customers, and I'm sure we've all experienced this before. We end up calling help desks, customer support, and then they ask you what seems to be really weak security control questions. What's your date of birth? What's your social security number? Am I supposed to tell these over the phone? You should have gotten it right in your app the first time, right? So these were the big problems that we encountered while building different fintech apps, and we've translated this into a product in Authsignal to solve.
Yeah, very cool. So that kind of talks about the security side of things, and then I know that you also are very passionate about creating great user experiences. So maybe tell me about what got you excited about that side of things.
I think in my life building products, seeing the immediate impact of a feature or a service and seeing data stream through around adoption in real time, I got a real kick out of building products and seeing the real life impact. And then when you can get real stories and real world feedback, points from customers saying, hey, thank you so much for doing this or bringing this in or tweaking this. Those are really great motivators and drivers for myself and the team. So, and also just the fact that there are very few people wanting to build beautiful products in security. I mean, it really led us to go, why isn't anyone doing it? Why are people prioritizing function over form in security? So we'd like to think that we're leaders in the space, and so far we're seeing some really great success.
Yeah, it's super interesting. When you look at certainly in the consumer space, there has been, I think Apple is one of the leaders in that area, right, of creating these amazing experiences and thinking about how someone's going to use the product instead of just they can function, it will do the thing, right? And they've had a lot of success, and it's become a trend, right? On consumer products, lots of companies have had a great success in incorporating UX from the very beginning and thinking about it. But the security space seems to be lagging a little bit behind that. So are there specific reasons? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, there seems to be some really, especially in our space of authentication, there seems to be legacy ideas around how you get consumers to opt in to security controls. And some of them, when I start and you start thinking about it, sounds very counterintuitive. The way you step a user through and educate a user through a security uplift process like adopting MFA, a lot of it is centered around a huge bombardment of information, information overload. Thinking that by giving that level of optionality for a consumer to give to educate them, I mean, on paper it sounds great, but you are introducing barriers to adoption, right? So we've been very fortunate to be part of a revolution called passkeys, which has been spearheaded by some of the largest tech companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, along with the FIDO Alliance, to rethink what that means, and to flip security controls like MFA on its head. How do you combine function with the form of your hardware device? Thankfully, we've got some great participants in this ecosystem like Apple to make security controls like MFA disappear into the background. So the technology is passkeys, and we're starting to see this adopted. And you may have not even realized you've turned a passkey on recently, but that's a good thing. Um, and there might be some gaps in then how you backfill customer understanding of what they've done. But maybe that is after the fact of a security control being enabled. Going, hey, look, you've just turned on passkeys, as opposed to putting consideration up front, for example. So we're seeing this movement of really making security controls to the use of things like passkeys completely disappear. And I think there needs to be more emphasis and going, hey, look, actually guardrails up front and making security opt out. That is your status quo as opposed to opt in.
Okay. Super interesting. So when I think most of us think about MFA, multi-factor authentication, a lot of times I think about the little 6-digit code that gets texted to me that then I have to copy and paste into.
Yeah.
So how are passkeys? Well, let me ask this instead. Instead of asking how passkeys are different, what's an example of where a passkey is being used in an application that we might use day to day?
So if you have an iCloud or a Google account, you'll start seeing the next time you log in some prompts to ask you to upgrade to a passkey. And very simply, passkeys eliminate the use of these one-time passcodes that you get in an SMS. And at a very high level for our viewers, without getting too deep on the technical aspects, for a long time, in the world of security, the exchange of something private between you and me, like a PIN or a password, is the de facto standard. I know something like a PIN, or you have a secret and telling me through an SMS code, and I have to exchange that with you. That proves me to you who I am. That is what we call a symmetric system, where both parties need to know this PIN code. Passkeys turn that upside down by going, how do you keep something secret that could live on a phone, but still share and prove that you are who you say you are with the other party without them needing to ever know this secret? And there's really fancy cryptography in the background, and won't get into details. But this means the user never ever has to transmit something really really private to them across the wires. And what Apple and Google have done with their devices is that they've built Face ID and Touch ID into this flow, so that you never ever need to copy and paste things. You can just touch or Face ID, and the operating system would then transmit or do this cryptographic process on your phone to then prove who you are. So that is the fundamental difference between a passkey and SMS, and you'll start seeing this in many of the large services. Our job as Authsignal to show how easy it is for our customers to put it in. We've been able to work with some large enterprises like an airline, and they're seeing some amazing adoption rates. Like 60% of their customers are going, hey, look, this is great. This passkeys seems great. I'm going to turn it on, and they're not exiting out. So we're at a stage of adoption where mainstream, everyday folks are clicking and engaging, and this is the balancing act of how much opt-in you give to a customer, and we kind of balance that for our customers.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a perfect example of kind of leading with improving the customer experience. That's why, like, security is obviously something that is important. And if you ask someone, hey, do you want your app to be secure? Do you want your life to be secure? Well, of course they do, right? But how much frustration are you willing to put up with in order to remain secure? And so, if we, as people who are creating security software, if we can find ways to make them safer and make the experience better for them, then that's going to be a win for everyone, right?
Correct. And the numbers don't lie. The old way of leading with controls and functions first are yielding adoption rates at around 30 to 40%. The old way of stepping customers through a very functional process is yielding very low adoption rates. So you need to rethink things.
Yeah, interesting. So I know that we had talked before, and you mentioned some of your inspiration that you have when it comes to user experience, and you're wanting to create beautiful products. So maybe tell me a little bit about who are some people that inspire you when it comes to this space.
Yeah, it's a bit cliche, but Johnny Ive, Steve Jobs, Apple, they've done a great job. The ethos and principles around making technology fade away is something that I really believe in, and our team believes in, and we're seeing that from the feedback. And it's often the lack of negative feedback is sometimes the only KPI you have. When you've done something good.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's frustrating for because you don't get a kudos, no one's fist pumping you or giving you great feedback. So you have to adapt and try and figure out different ways to measure your success. So we're forced to be more creative with ourselves and our customers to try and focus in on the data points that matter, as opposed to say, hey, let's wait for some positive feedback to come through the email.
yeah. No, that's great. And I think you'd mentioned before, you guys do a good bit of research
Yeah.
and talking with customers and mentioning the joy you get from seeing someone's face when they're like, "Oh, this just works." That's great. Tell me a little bit about the how do you guys implement research in Authsignal?
Yeah, we were pretty customer led and design led even before building the business. Even before writing a line of code about 3.5, 4 years ago, we started with a lot of field studies, user interviews, focus groups across a wide demographic around the specific problem that we were targeting, which is the adoption of tools like multi-factor authentication. So we wanted to build a product from first principles that's based on real data and real fact. So we spent a lot of time in that space, and we were very fortunate to get a lot of really great insights from these sorts of research techniques. And then that spilt into the product design and then we started writing code. So I think taking lessons learned from building other types of products, we made it a massive intent that if we're going to do this Authsignal right and our customers right, we got to start through a product-led and design-led approach and customer-centric approach. So that's what how we kick things off. We still incorporate these forms, and we work closely with our own customers to do user testing or focus group studies before pushing new products out. We put our product in front of a wide demographic, and we're very fortunate to have some of our customers help us with that, to do the testing, to do the refinement, to do the feedback loops, and we work in an iterative way and in a partnership with our customers. So yeah, I guess you could say that we really take the full spectrum of UX research and testing and try and we've done it in a way. Again, it's the same as what we just talked about security controls, same sort of principles. If we've made it too difficult for our staff and our engineers and product managers to adopt design and customer centric thinking, they're not going to adopt it. Right? So we've really blended it in and made it's just part of our flow and our process and our thinking to not have UX research and UX thinking be a burden. And we partner up with our customers a lot on this as well to ease the load, and which allows us to not make too many assumptions as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a great journey, and really fortunate to have great staff and customer partners to do this.
Was it challenging getting your customers to understand the value of research and getting them to participate, or was it they instantly got it, or you kind of had to lead them in that area? Or
It was actually very critical to bringing these new technologies in and selling it internally into the business. As you can appreciate, MFA has negative connotations, and we had to dispel a lot of that and help our customers sell it internally. UX research played a big part in that. The FIDO Alliance that we are a part of has published a ton of great research and studies as well, and I recommend having a look when it comes to passkeys. Use these resources, use that to create buy-in. You're not gonna win or put security controls in without buy-in internally. It's a very common problem. So you got to start there, and having the real proof and data is a great step to try and achieve get over these hurdles.
yeah, that's great. It's since you're a founder and you came in with this ethos, and I'm guessing not just you, but probably the other founders too, really understood the value of UX research and UI design and making sure that you're creating something awesome. A lot of it's kind of unusual in my experience to have one of the early founders that be one of their big focuses they have. So what advice would you give to an early stage founder who thinks, oh well, I know what my customers want?
I would say bring in people if you understand your biases and are self-aware to
Mm,
map out your biases, quickly fill in the gaps, and bring people in that can fill in the the biases that you don't fill yourself into, right? Bring in experts early. Bring in designers in early. They will help and give you a different perspective and insight. And I could say that I came from an engineering background and have a more technical focus, but I guess there was an element through, I guess, previous failures and previous experiences to go, hey, look, there is a gap that I need to fill, and I need to bring people that are really passionate about this area and to give me insight. So I think that you have to start there.
okay. Very cool. On the research side of things, do you have dedicated team members that's what they do? That all they do is research, or is that one of the hats they wear, or do you kind of spread that around where people in engineering and design and in the leadership are all kind of taking part in doing the research?
Yeah, we do have product design functions at Authsignal, but we do not want to create a culture where it's only one person's job.
Mm,
So, from a cultural point of view, our product and product design team can help facilitate testing. They've got a great experience in that. But the ownership of the outcomes is a shared responsibility across the business. And we're very fortunate to make sure that, the people that we bring on board share the same principles, and if they don't, we make it clear this is how we work at Authsignal, and whether or not you're an engineer that's just cutting back end code. What we're finding is there especially in our world, how you design back end services, it may seem super removed from the UX, but has huge implications, because what we found was poor decision making in the back end can actually lead to poor design outcomes when you're in a rush. You're building around a technology, and then you create a poor outcome, or then you get really slow because you didn't incorporate some design thinking in the whole process end to end. So no, it's so important for us to not have this siloed into one individual, one function in a team.
have One of the things that I found, and maybe you've had a similar experience, is that when you show a user testing session to a back end engineer, then it becomes pretty addictive pretty quickly. Like, oh wow, that was really cool to see how someone was actually using this. It made perfect sense to me as the engineer. Like, why are they having trouble with this? And then watching them struggle, and then figuring out how to solve that, and then watching the better experience, right?
Here's a good example. We recently just went through some taking some user feedback and some user testing sessions and played it back to our team. And there was comments around the speed of a particular button. And immediately that pain was transmitted and shared and empathized across not just the designers, the front end guys, the guy who designed the button, but to the person who is in charge of what that button does, which is typically someone that's very, very removed from the user experience, right? So when that's communicated and understood, they go, wow, my code and the way I've designed something, the speed of which this API, this backend thing has a flow on effect to a customer, and I need to get on board and try and address the issue. That's the magic, right? That's key. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. Do you have any other stories that you'd want to share about Authsignal?
Yeah, I
Either they
think
could be things that went well or things that didn't go so well.
Yeah, so I think one thing that went well. So we work with an airline, and it's amazing how and being a traveler myself, I get to hop on different planes and airlines. And what's intriguing is typically in security and in MFA, most companies give the bare minimum. All right, here's the bare minimum. Here's SMS. We've ticked the box and we've done our jobs. Someone in security said, hey, look, I've done MFA and all of our customers are protected. Now, with us, some of our customers involved in travel, their users are travelers and may not get signal, they may be on a plane on Wi-Fi. So one of the big wins and one of the things that we've really baked into our product is choice for our customers to adopt and opt in and choose to incorporate into their own personal accounts to turn on. And when we get feedback from, through our customers that they've used the MFA process that the Authsignal has built on a plane on Wi-Fi because there was a big snowstorm and the plane they had disrupted flights and they had to quickly rebook on Wi-Fi, get through MFA, and we call it the digital front door, rebook in a jiffy, and then completely keep making that customer at ease by the time they land. That is, these stories are just testament to how if you really put yourself in the shoes of your customers, give them the optionality, give them the choice, rather than tick a box, you're really creating outcomes. And this customer may not give any good feedback. There'll be a ton of these people that won't actively ring up or write in and say, hey, look, you saved my life, because you gave me a great process on login. I mean, I doubt a lot of people would do that. But we managed to at least capture that snippet from this one individual. And the encouragement is, yes, it's one individual who gave feedback, but how many people have you impacted, right? So the trick is to then ensure how do we find other data points to stand in the lack of direct positive customer feedback, right? So yeah, that's a really cool story that, we were very proud of being part of, and encompasses not just a user experience, taking your crayons out and designing user experience or interface. There is this end-to-end deep product and design thinking here. It's end-to-end. It's not just a button. And I think that's what people need to realize, that product and design thinking is not just moving buttons around on a page. It's everything about your product.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure the quote is from Steve Jobs, who said, "Design is the way the thing works." Right. So it's not something that you apply later on. We've got this product now. Let's figure out how we should design the interface. It's baked into everything that's there. And you're talking about that amazing experience, this seamless experience of them being able to log in and rebook their flight. That's an experience that doesn't happen on accident, right? You have to intentionally put emphasis on, we want to have the best functioning app ever. We want to make this where we're thinking about our customers. We're thinking about the experience they have on the worst day of using it,
Empathy.
on the best day of using the product, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Not just a happy path, but because those things tend to sort itself out. It's the unhappy path.
Scary path, right? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. And it's scary to think about them. Let's be honest.
Mhm.
You have to be a bit vulnerable to get to that kind of headspace.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very cool. I know that you said sometimes the lack of negative feedback is the only KPI you have. I love that quote. I thought that quote was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's sometimes discouraging. I'm not getting any good feedback, or what else can you look at? Has customer complaints gone up is another thing. One of the other metrics that we've had is around customer support tickets around password recovery. We have to really dig deep here to really try and find a metric that works. And because when you're doing a good job, it's difficult to find those metrics. So I would say dig deep and work with the business and the people that you work with to try and find these nuggets of metrics and then try and measure as much as possible.
I know you mentioned design thinking and how important that is in the entire process of intentionally building an amazing product. Are there any useful techniques that you found that work really well that you would recommend for other security companies?
Yeah, I think engaging your customers from both the onboarding process, because that is a huge touch point and engagement process with one of your customers, especially in security. They're gonna give you a lot of feedback on your product, and for a lot of us, that's where we want the delight, and that you want the delight to be at its maximum, right at the start. So I would say don't treat it as um, another process that you have to tick off. It's There's rich insights, engage your customers there, and then after they start using your product, check in, do interviews, do surveys, or just in our world, we bring a lot of our customers directly into our Slack. So we have very close engagement with our closest and biggest customers, and having that relationship so that they can feedback things to you, uh, and have a really great relationship with customers. I think that's crucial. And again, that may not be a design process per se, but it's the human element that you got to really try and build into your processes, which sometimes it's just easy to just tick a box and go through the motions. So I definitely encourage folks who are in security to not forget that.
That's great advice.
Years now.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. You've been running Authsignal for almost 3 years now. So if you could go back and talk to yourself on day zero of starting Authsignal, what is the advice you would give yourself as an early stage founder?
Yeah, I think if you look at an early stage founder, you are, climbing a large mountain. I think that the recurring feedback is around the reassurance that if you're a team and you are laser focused on the customer problem and solving for those, you will be okay. And if you're not, then you probably do have something to be worried about. But I guess that's the if because when you're having very little signals early on, go back to the problem. Be really focused on that.
Awesome. Justin, it has been so fantastic talking with you. Thanks for all your insights into this. And if people want to know more about Authsignal and you and your journey, then what's the best way for them to find you and keep up with what's happening?
Just go to our website, authsignal.com. You can learn all about passkeys there and hopefully incorporate that into your own user applications. And we can help and help for that and just get in touch and sign up.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again for your time today, Justin. This has been great.
Thanks, William.